Welcome to Keeping It Real. How's everyone doing today?
Good. How are you? Cold, I heard.
Yes, I am. I'm in actually Nebraska to hang out with my mom for a little bit, and when I was driving. Well, because I flew in obviously, and then as I was going from the airport in Omaha to Sioux City, it was like going down. I was watching it from Omaha, going it was like 1 or 2 degrees above zero to like 6 by the time I got to my mom's house, and that's not with wind chill. Wind chill, there's another whole thing. So it was probably about negative 25, 30, and I don't know how bad it got that night, but it's been cold. So anyway, I am trying to stay as warm as possible. Can't wait to get back almost.
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and start chatting about what our the debunking of the biggest home buying myths today. And this is going to be kind of interesting. We touched on a couple things before. I know we talk about it sometimes, but there's so many times where there's so much misinformation out there. It seems like with everything, right? Everything's misinformation, it seems like. So today we're
people
talking about
think that if they hear it on the internet that it's truth, and it's not.
Right. Or you're talking to your friends who don't really know, and they're telling people stuff, and it's like, that's not really exactly right. I mean, like, it might be in your case, but maybe not in the next person's case. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and start talking about it. So the first one, is going to be the down payment, right? Because that's like probably the most biggest one you hear when you're talking to somebody is like, oh, I got to come with so much down, and and that's not always the case.
It's true. And 20% down is a very daunting thought to have. And so people just completely negate the fact that they could even purchase a house. But there are other options. There are options that have zero down payment. USDA, of course, you have to be in a rural area, but FHA only 3.5%. And then if you're a veteran or active duty, 0%. And then for some conventional programs, if you are a first-time home buyer, you can actually go down to 3% down. So
that's awesome.
It's pretty good. There's some great programs out there.
You can sometimes get down payment assistance even with that amount. And in the USDA too, I know like Kitsap there's a lot of areas in Kitsap that are rural, right? So even though a lot of people think we're city, it's not always the case. So it's a great idea to check that out too, because that can be another option for you.
Definitely.
That's a really good one to check out. So, all right. The next one, number 6.
Buying cheaper than renting, really?
I think so, because I don't know. I guess if when I was working in the city, for instance, and I was only going to plan on being there. I'm talking about San Francisco. This is way back when, but I was living in San Francisco and stuff like that. And just starting out, buying probably wasn't the most affordable thing, immediately, when I got to San Francisco. Staying there for a couple of years and kind of getting my, my feet grounded a little bit and getting my, income up a little bit, and that kind of stuff as I move forward in life, then yes, it made more sense. But, sometimes it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And, in most places on the pro side of buying, most places, the appreciation, unless you're locked into a certain amount with your landlord, they appreciate about 1 to 2% a year in the cost of your rent, where your mortgage payment is going to stay the same, except if in the event your insurance goes higher or your property taxes, but the principal and interest is going to remain the same throughout the life of the loan. So eventually, and what this graph is basically showing is that over time, it's actually going to be more cost effective to be in a home, because by the time you reach that same stage with the purchase of your home, the rent will be way higher than your current rent. Or your current mortgage, I'm sorry.
And I just ran a thing on that to kind of going along with that a little bit. I just read that since 2020, the houses have went up 47%.
For rent?
So, that's a pretty good investment for your dollar. So if you started 20 years ago, 24 years ago, good job. 25 years ago now, gosh, it seems like that's a long time ago.
Yeah, I know for us, my mortgage for a 4-bedroom house, almost 2,400 square feet, is less than $2,000 a month. I know you cannot find a comparable home for the same amount in rent.
Okay. All right. Good information, of course. All right. The next one. Gosh, you always got to have that perfect credit, right? I mean, like, don't even think about because you can't, my credit's not good enough. I can't buy, right? I mean, I hear that so
Right?
many times too. That's another big one.
It is. And that's what people think. They have to have a perfect credit score, no derogatories on there. It's not true. People live, they have things that are sometimes unforeseen. One great thing that has just been passed was that you can no longer count medical debt in your credit report. So a lot of people, some of their derogatory things are medical debt that is maybe in collections. You still will have to pay for those things, but it's not going to be counted against you because oftentimes medical bills are missed if they didn't realize their insurance didn't cover something. So that's going to definitely help to increase people's credit scores. But you don't have to have perfect credit. Will it give you
And those
better
add up,
rate?
those medical costs add up so quickly too. So I mean, it could
They
be
do.
so easy. Just one bad thing happen, and it would totally mess you up before. So that's kind of a really good thing. And I don't think we've talked really about that in full detail, but that is a really good one to think about now.
Yes, exactly. And for me, like I was speaking to someone the other day and she had no idea that you could run a simulator and see if there are ways that you can increase your credit score. So if I pull credit for you, I'm going to say, "Hey, let me see how much money do you have to work with right now? Let's see if we can help raise your credit score over the next few months."
Right. And you know what? And I have always said this, and if you want to go back, you can watch them and see me saying that bit before. But I've said this a whole bunch of times. If you need, like, even if your credit maybe isn't quite what you need as far as like one of those different loan requirements, I would still go see a lender and talk to them because they have so many ways. And I mean, Carrie is so incredibly helpful, and that's what she loves to do. She loves to help people. I mean, the way she wouldn't be in this business because that's just what you do. So
Exactly.
go see her, talk to her, give her a call. Um, we'll throw the phone numbers up at the end here just for a second too, so that way you guys make sure you get them. But give her a call because she would love to sit down and chat with you a little bit more about how to improve that score if that's one of your concerns.
Definitely.
Okay. The next one, the asking price is non-negotiable. Oh my God, this market, sorry, I hate to say it, but I mean, there's some houses that, they're selling like, like right away. But for the most things, the homes are sitting on the market a little bit longer, and there's not the influx of buyers that there was 2 years ago. And so you have a little bit more, you have a little bit more leeway, a little bit more negotiation as far as like, hey, I really don't want to pay that, or maybe, hey, can you pay for my closing costs, and and do some of that stuff. So it's a great time to negotiate with sellers right now, in my opinion, out in the market. So
It is. It is definitely.
yep, I've gotten some great deals for my clients. So definitely go
And you
talk to
never know
somebody.
until you ask, right? That's the whole thing, is never
Right.
be afraid
I
to
mean, that's
ask.
the thing is you can always ask. They can say no, but you can always ask, and then maybe you'll end up meeting somewhere, but closer to what you were hoping for. So you never know.
Exactly.
Okay. The next thing is you should avoid paying in a high rate environment. Carrie, I'm gonna let you take this one away because this is your end. This is your side of the fence.
Yeah, well, it goes very much in conjunction with what you just talked about. This is a high rate environment, according to some. I mean, like when you talk to people that have had mortgages at 19%, they're laughing that things are between 6 and 7%. They would have died for that, 30 years ago. But the problem is, people have become so used to the lower interest rates, they haven't wanted to purchase. So they're thinking it's not doable. But really, this goes hand in hand with the negotiations because homes are sitting on the market longer due to affordability because of the high rate environment. So sellers will need to come down. And if you ask them, like we said, the worst answer you can get is no, but they could surprise you and say yes. So it's actually a great time to purchase because then when the market is flooded because the rates have dropped, there are going to be way more home buyers. The market's going to become more competitive. And so you might get just edged out of multiple properties because you didn't purchase at the right time.
I'm kind of getting the feeling that might kind of start happening a little bit this summer. What's your feel for the summer? Do you think that that's what's going to kind of start happening?
I do. I've seen it coming for a while. I really have.
Yeah, I'm feeling it out in the market. I mean, I can just kind of feel like it's slower, but there's a lot of people who are just, it feels like they're just like waiting. It's like ready, set, jump kind of thing. It just,
It's like a bubble
anyway.
that's about to pop.
So we'll see what happens. We'll see if
Yeah.
we're right. Okay. Number 2 myth. is going to be the market always goes up. And it actually, it does. Like I just said, the National Association of Realtors just said, or no, was it? Oh, sorry, multiple sources have said this. I don't have exact sources on this one, but a Google search told me this. But they've went up 47% since 2020. So there's been an increase. And I mean, even when I look back at when my parents bought their house and stuff like that, like, when I was a child kind of thing, and what they spent for a house versus now, I mean, the market goes up. It just takes a long time, right?
It does. And, really, it just depends on what's going on in the actual market, right? And the thing is, we saw huge price increases during COVID. That was definitely a low rate environment. It was a seller's market. People were bidding on homes just way higher than they should have gone. So we saw the prices skyrocket. And so we did see a fall. There was some decreases, but guess what? The rates were higher, so not as many people were purchasing either. It is a fluctuating market. It's never going to be consistent. It's never going to always go up. There's always going to be downtrends, but it tends to be an uptrend more than a downtrend.
Right. Overall, long term, it's a great investment in my opinion. I mean, like I said, it's just watching from like I said, my parents to like what we've done and stuff like that. You can definitely see the growth over a long, long period of time. But there are lots of ups, there are lots of downs. Which kind of brings us to the last one, our final one. You should wait to the perfect market conditions.
Yeah. Is there ever one?
No, it's like and honestly, I think it's like if you're thinking about buying, you really need to base it on what your life is dictating to you and what makes sense for you financially. I mean, if you've got the means to be able to buy a house right now, there's always ways. Like if the rates drop, you can get better prices. I mean, if to stay in your home longer or something, maybe than selling it or whatever, to get something better right away. If you're going to plan on selling it 5 years and move up to a different, higher, nicer home, whatever, you might have to wait a little bit longer. But I say it's really, you just got to go with what makes sense for you and you financially and your life, what's going on.
That's really what it comes down to at the end of the day is when you're prepared and ready to go, that's always the best time.
It is, because you can't predict that. Otherwise, we'd be really rich because we'd just be able to have a crystal ball and say, oh, you should do that right now. And, oh, no, wait. Right?
Or we would have like flush times and then times that we don't make any money. So, if the market was always, like we said, always hot, it would never be a good time.
Right.
I think that it's a better time right now, but it's never the best time, I think is the main point.
Right.
Is never wait.
I mean, and it's like, it depends on if you're a buyer or seller too. I mean, it depends on, there's so many different factors. You just need to talk to somebody and figure out what's going on in the market and what makes sense and see what you can do. So,
yeah.
As I promised, I'm going to go ahead and put our phone numbers up so you can make sure you do this. But I do have a surprise extra bonus that I told Carrie about before too. And probably the biggest myth in buying real estate, in my opinion, though, is so many first-time home buyers walk in and say, I'm buying my dream house. And you know what? It is your dream house because it's your first home. And it is a dream, right? Because you get to actually do the American dream and buy your own house, and that's super awesome. But it's not going to be everything you want. And you really got to have those realistic expectations about, what you absolutely have to have and what you want. And even as like I was reading the National Association of Realtors thing, and it says people move about every 9 years. So, you might move in a house that maybe is a little bit smaller than you wanted. And then your next house, when, in like 10 years, when you've got an extra kid added in or something or whatever, 2 extra dogs, maybe you go for a little bit bigger house. And that was your goal was, the bigger house, It's
and
not
then you
always
have a larger down payment because you have a home that has gained equity over time. So now you can afford the bigger home and have a comparable payment because you're coming in with more money that you have gained through the appreciation and the value of your home while paying down the loan balance. So it's a win-win for me when you look at it that way, that you don't have to have the perfect house. You can move into a place and you can make it what you want it to be until you're ready to move to the next stage in life.
Exactly. So, and there's a lot of ways to do that too. Like we just talked about at my open house last weekend with the home renovation loans. So anyway, Carrie's got you covered. If you need any help with the loan process, I'm here to help. Our phone numbers are there. You guys, thank you so much for watching us, and we will see you again next week.
See you next week.